Hey 8th graders, it is Miss Westmoreland here, and today what we're going to do is we are going to do your basic little science experiment. And the takeaways that I want you to be looking for as I set up this experiment, and then I will come back later on after we see some results, is I want you to look to know what the independent variable is, the dependent variable, and the control variables. Okay, so we're going to do your quintessential first grade science experiment. If you were ever in a science fair, you've definitely seen this experiment before. You've probably done this experiment before. So we're going to do a little variation of this experiment. Okay, so what I have is I have a head of celery, and I recently learned, actually, a little aside for your parents, because sometimes when you buy celery, you only need a little tiny bit, and then it goes bad. So what I read to save celery, and this is the first time I'm unwrapping it, so I'm not even sure if it worked. It worked okay. Is that a way to save celery is to wrap it in tin foil, and we'll actually save it for up to 3 months. So I've got a head of celery. Or I should say a stalk of celery. I've got 3 clear liquids, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally cut these in front of you so that you can see that I'm not changing anything around, that we're using the same stalk, okay? And I'm just going to take 3 pieces, and I'm going to take them really actually from the middle because they seem a little bit fresher. Okay, so I'm going to set all this stuff aside, okay? And just to be fair, I'm going to cut them so they're the same exact length. I'm going to cut a little bit from the bottom, okay? And I'm going to cut a little bit from the top. Okay, so I've got 3 stalks of celery, okay? I'm going to put them in the exact same, cups because we want to keep everything nice and equal, okay? And you can see I have a measuring cup, and I'm going to pour in 3 clear liquids. So in your quintessential science fair experiment, you basically take water and you pour different color food coloring in each cup, and then you see what happens. And I think you've probably seen this before. You see that that you can see the water as it's traveling through the celery, and we'll talk a little bit more about the science behind that when we look at the results. But and you can see that the celery stalks change color. Well, I decided that I would like to see what happens when we not only use water, but we use 2 other clear liquids. So I'm going to use water as one, and just a little environmental side note, try to not use disposable water bottles. If you can get yourself a really good water bottle, that's the way to go, because plastic water bottles are just really a problem. But I wanted to show you this just so you can see that I'm really just trying to keep my experiment as equal and as controlled as possible. So I'm going to pour water, exactly 1 cup, into the one glass with the celery stalk. I'm going to pour 1 cup of just distilled white vinegar, and I'm sure many of you already know this because maybe your parents use this as a way to cook and clean, but vinegar is the multi-purpose solution. I sometimes use vinegar, and just a tiny little bit to pour it out, so I'm just going to put a little bit. Oh, there you go. I use vinegar sometimes when I'm cleaning my towels, and it makes my towels really fresh. Okay, so here's our vinegar, here's our water, okay, and then I'm going to use a cup of 7-Up, because 7-Up is a clear liquid. Now, you might say, well, yes, but 7-Up is also carbonated, so that is certainly something to consider, whether it will affect it or not. We also know that when soda is sitting in a container, it will go flat. This clearly has a lot of carbonation. Cool. All right, and I'm just going to pour a tiny little bit more in because some spilled out. Okay, so as you can see, we have equal amounts of water, vinegar, and 7-Up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these just right by my window, okay? And I'm putting them in the exact same spots because I want to make sure that they all receive the exact same amounts of sunlight. And I'm just going to put my water here. I'm going to put my vinegar here right next door, and my 7-Up right here, okay? And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some food coloring. So give me 1 second as I grab my food coloring, which of course I forgot in this experiment. So I'm gonna be off the camera. I'm gonna grab my food coloring and I'm going to drop the same amount of food coloring into each of the containers of water, each of the glass containers of water. So I think just because I'm feeling like today's a red day, we're gonna drop some red food coloring in, all right? So I'm gonna drop 5 drops of food coloring into each one of my glasses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The tip
1,
of it is starting to change
2,
a little bit
3,
more.
4, 5. I've got Maggie in the background. She's my 8-year-old, and you will probably hear and see my children and my dogs in future videos as they will be helping me film when we're at home. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our experiment going, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to wait a little bit of time, and we're going to see what happens. I'm going to check back in about a day. And we'll see what the results look like. But here we are so far, and I will see you again later. Bye.